I think if we want to think about what the world's like in 20 years' time, we can be sure that it will be at least as different as today's world is from 20 years ago. In 1996, the internet was for geeks, cell phones were for stockbrokers, and Jeff Bezos was shipping books out of his garage. And now that's entirely changed. I think, indeed, probably the age of incrementalism is over. Most of my life has been as a journalist, and it's been in trying to pick what I think will happen, so I'll know what to cover, and as an editor, trying to dispatch people to where they should be. In 1994, when I was working for The Australian, I did an investigation on a 20-year retrospective of the 74 floods. And I found this in my garage. This was the front page. More rain likely, but risk less than 74. So at that time, people were talking about the dam was going to save us. It was okay to build all over the river. I left Brisbane, I came back in 2002, and informed by that knowledge, I did two things. I bought a house on a hill, and as editor of the Courier Mail, I dispatched a team of investigative journalists to look at why Brisbane wasn't preparing properly for flooding. And then we had an 8-year drought. So I looked like a real genius. But you know, if you keep saying the same thing, eventually you end up right. So let me have a stab at it. What will 2036 be like? From what we know now, we can confidently say these things. There will be steady, but probably not calamitous climate change. There will be greater reliance on renewable energy, and we should wonder what that does to our coal-reliant economy and everything that flows from that. The population will be generally older. There'll be shifting global power balances. Most likely China will be the dominant influence in this part of the world, and that will have a whole lot of other meanings. The technology advances will deliver new and faster ways of communicating, ways we probably can't imagine now. There'll be a growth of robotic transport systems, driverless cars and drones. Jackie, we may be able to get rid of the Southeast Freeway, you never know. And you know, even if it doesn't take too much of a stretch to think that instead of having wearables to count our steps and heartbeat and keep us honest in that way, we may have wearables that connect us to gazillionaires of artificial intelligence in the cloud, and think about what that does to our collective thinking capacity. On past patterns, we know there will be financial shocks, and past patterns we will recover. There will be health shocks. There may be great advances in healthcare in that time, maybe even the Holy Grail, a cure for cancer. These are all not unreasonable things to consider. But there's one thing won't change, and that is that we live in a basin and around a river which will flood when it rains enough. Now, today's program is built around the idea of that happening in 2036. There's no technology on the horizon that will stop the water, which will just do exactly what nature intended. Wherever it falls in the basin, it will end up coming down through Moggill, through Sherwood, Toowong, Milton, probably under here, through the city, down to New Farm and out in the Moreton Bay. That's what nature intended. That's what will happen. What may change is our ability to be able to predict more quickly when that will be and how high the water will be. And some of the technology will also help us. Our people and our properties will probably be made safer, and our losses probably will be able to be better contained, while we all sit on the hilltop and watch what's going on from the cameras positioned beautifully on the drones hovering above our homes. Is that right, George?
Okay, so we're promised this wonderful technological future. I remember when I was younger, we were promised a lovely technological future where robots would do everything and we'd all live lives of luxury and leisure. Unfortunately, the luxury hasn't been very well shared, and the leisure for some people is called unemployment. Let's look ahead into the future. What if I sat in 2020, look back? President Trump has focused on what he promised, America first, homeland security, and he has also done what he promised in terms of getting rid of this bloody awful climate change hoax. The oil and gas lobby are ecstatic. Things are going well there. Europe is falling apart under social and economic pressures, which enables President Putin to start to exert pressures, economic, etc., back into Eastern Europe. The Middle East has fallen apart completely. What happened there? Syria, God, the peace talks broke down after 12 hours back in 2016, and they're still trying to get them going again. The conflict has spread everywhere. Meanwhile, China has been, sort of annexing more islands and has fallen out with Japan, South Korea, everybody. North Korea's still a wild card. What's happened in Australia? Oh, my adopted country, I am a citizen now. My adopted country is big reliance on non-renewable resources, on importing international students, on selling vastly overpriced properties. All that's sort of gone belly up. It's a country where the economy is weak, it's reliant on other weak economies across the world. In the meantime, climate change events have got much more dramatic, much more frequent. In Queensland, the West, the drought has been going on for the last 5 years, and in the East, the floods and the storms have become much worse. We've got a public sector that has little funding to respond to these increasing events. Big business has gone to safer places where they can make profit without having to worry about it. And the public, the populace has sort of lapsed into this learned helplessness where they sit about and wait for the cavalry to come over the hill to save them. Okay, that's a bit bloody doom and gloom, isn't it? The world is not going to turn out like that, hopefully, but neither is everything going to be rosy. The world operates in different ways. I've been working for decades now with scenario methods. The purpose of scenarios is to take a value-neutral look at the world we live in and to look at all the different possibilities of how politics, economics, technology, etc. may unfold, and how human factors and interventions and power, politics, etc. intermingles with that. There's a sort of detailed view of the approach I'm talking about up there and an overview. What we try to do is to raise key questions about how, if we're living in good times with good economy, etc., we can still make a mess of that through how we fail to think about the future properly, and how even in the worst of times, we still have to work together to make the best of it, make the most of it. So our task today is to start thinking about all the possibilities for the future, the good, the bad, the world coming together, the world falling apart. But what needs to be done here? How do we, as individuals, communities, businesses, organizations, make sure that this region survives and thrives, no matter what happens?